Welcome to MOOC course on studies in theatre. Students, today we will talk briefly about the Russian theatre. If you look at the overview of Russian theatre, before the 17th century there wasn't really a formal idea of theatre in Russian culture. Till half of the 17th century, people enjoyed entertainment from traveling performers known as Peredwiziniki. During the rule of T.A. Mikhailovich, theatre became professional. And these are some important points. But other than this, there is a discussion that I want to offer you that Russian theatre has its roots back to the Middle Ages when traveling performers entertained crowds and religious plays with them, with folk tales, etc. And these performances would often take place in various kinds of open spaces, but with colorful music, costumes, and dance. Then came the imperial era, during which the development of Russian theatre is visible, particularly under the rulers like Catherine the Great. Italian and French theatrical traditions influenced Russian theatre during this time, and it led to the establishment of permanent theatre in major cities like Moscow and St. Petersburg. Then the Moscow Art Theatre was founded in 1898 by Konstantin Stanislavski and Vladimir Nemirovich Danchenko. The Moscow Art Theatre revolutionized Russian theatre and its focus on psychological realism and ensemble acting. The MAT, as it is abbreviated, became famous for its groundbreaking productions of plays by Anton Chekhov and other Russian playwrights. Then there is this time period of symbolism and avant-garde theatre in Russia, which experienced a period of experimentation and innovation during the 20th century. Playwrights were dabbling with ideas and themes of symbolism, surrealism, avant-garde techniques, and directors like Meyerhold and artists like Kazimir Malevich made significant contributions to this movement. And then comes the Soviet era that brought challenges as well as a lot of opportunities for Russian theatre. Although there was censorship and state control and limited artistic freedom, but Soviet authorities also supported theatre a lot as a means to disseminate their message and propaganda as well as in social education. This era produced notable playwrights like Mikhail Bulgakov and performances that critiqued Soviet society under the guise of allegory. Then you have post-Soviet period, that is 1991 onwards, after the collapse of Soviet Union, and contemporary Russian theatre continues to grapple with the social and political issues. So these are some of the aspects. Let us discuss them in detail with the help of some pictures and some more points. So, in medieval history of Russian theatre, the church's rules made it hard to have a national theatre. And even writing down folk songs and stories was forbidden from the 14th to 17th century. Skomorokhi, early entertainers, used to entertain people with songs, dance, and comedic acts, and they were treated badly by the church. Church developed church drama in which they showed stories from Bible and religious ideas. So these were heavily influenced by Eastern Orthodox Church. These are called as liturgical dramas, also known as troparion or canon. They were performed during religious festivals and ceremonies. These performances featured biblical stories, saints' lives, and moral lessons, serving as a means of religious instruction and edification for the largely illiterate people of that time. Then folk performances were also there. These included seasonal celebrations such as Meslenista, that is Butter Week, and Kupala Night, where villagers would engage in singing, dancing, and dramatic enactments based on folklore and superstitions. Performing traditions were also there, in which the performers would always visit the marketplaces and and they would participate in fairs and celebrations, providing a form of popular entertainment to people that existed, although outside the formal kind of theatre culture. Then there were some court performers also, and this was important because rulers like Ivan the Terrible and Peter the Great patronized court entertainments. This included masquerades, pageants, and theatrical spectacles. These performances often featured elaborate costumes, music, and dance, and served to showcase the wealth and power of the ruling elite. Another important component of this period of theatre culture was mystery plays. During the late medieval period, it began in Russia. These plays were performed by clergy and lay people, they were both participated, and they were staged in churches, cathedrals, and public squares. Mystery plays served both as religious devotion and entertainment for the masses. Then later on, there was a transition towards secular theatre by the end of the medieval period, and into the early modern era, Russian theatre underwent gradual transition. Then when we look at the Russian theatre during Imperial era, what we see is one of the most important hallmarks was the establishment of permanent theatres in major cities. The Imperial Court Theatre in St. Petersburg, founded in 1749, it was one of the earliest and most prestigious theatres in Russia. It staged performances primarily for the royal court and aristocracy. Then Italian and French influences also enriched theatre culture in Russia during this period. Russian theatre, so for example, Italian opera was especially very popular among the Russian elite, and French comedies and dramas were also staged in translation, contributing to the cosmopolitan atmosphere of Russian theatre. In addition to this, you could see the emergence of Russian dramatic literature. The imperial era encouraged this kind of thing. Ivan Krylov, for example, gained renown for his fables and comedies that satirized Russian society. Then there is a play like Woe from Wit, that written by Alexander, became a classic example of Russian literature, blending sharp social critique with comedic elements. Then there were theatre reforms this period, because in the reign of the Catherine the Great, it saw some reforms. Catherine encouraged the development of Russian language theatre and supported the establishment of first public theatres in Moscow and St. Petersburg. These theatres aimed to make theatre more accessible to the general public and played a key role in popularizing dramatic arts in Russia. Ballet and opera, therefore, as because of the Italian connection, French plays, they were also very popular, especially in St. Petersburg. The Mariinsky Theatre was founded in 1783, and it was a renowned center for ballet and opera productions, showcasing the talents of composers like Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky and choreographers like Marius Pechipa. Then innovations were also visible to pave the way for modern theatre during this period, because the playwrights experimented with new forms and new themes, while directors and actors pushed the boundaries of theatrical expression. Mikhail Shepkin, often considered the father of Russian realistic acting, revolutionized stage performance with his naturalistic style in this period. Although it was hit by censorship and state control during the growth of theatre, these things also remained significant challenges for the artists. The imperial authorities closely monitored theatrical productions, particularly those with political or social content, and imposed strict censorship laws to ensure compliance with official ideology. So, this era therefore see the blooming of playwrights such as Alexander Pushkin, Nikolai Gogol, Anton Chekhov. So, this was a very fruitful time for the Russian theatre. Then Moscow Art Theatre, as had already been mentioned by me in the previous point, that it was initiated by Konstantin Stanislavski and Vladimir Danchenko in 1898. This is called as the school of acting that both of them propagated, is called as Stanislavski method, and which focuses a lot on real emotions in acting. One of the famous plays like The Seagull and Uncle Vanya by Anton Chekhov acquired a great popularity when they were produced by Moscow Art Theatre. I will take up this Moscow Art Theatre in my another lecture as well, where I will be discussing about the various schools of acting across the world. So let us move on to the next point, and that is the ballet. Because it started when when these dance styles came to Russia and they were performed at royal parties. Peter the Great's reforms led to establishment of theatrical schools where dance lessons, including ballet, were incorporated into the curriculum of noble educational institution. Although it was a theater or a performance culture which was exclusively for elites, but still it provided a diverse shape to Russian theater culture. Anna Leonova created the first official ballet group called Imperial Ballet in 1738. The Bolshoi Ballet in Moscow and the Mariinsky Ballet in St. Petersburg are famous Russian ballet companies. Now we come to contemporary art of Russian theatre. It explores experimental approaches to storytelling, including avant-garde techniques and innovating staging methods. It also collaborates with artists from various disciplines, including visual art, music, and technology. It uses technology to make their shows exciting. They use things like videos and gadgets to make audience feel like they are part of the story. Contemporary art of Russian theater is something which is continued, and even today we can discuss whatever is happening under the umbrella term of contemporary Russian theater, because it is not singularly something theatrical, but it is an amalgam of various kinds of performance cultures in which dance, music, technology, visual arts all have collaborated. And Russian theater is known for actually giving direction to including incorporating philosophy, ideology, political propaganda in the sphere of entertainment through theater, and that has continued even today. Although world all on in the entire world, there are various kinds of tussles have been going on with the performers and people who do not want performers to run any propaganda which is opposing their ideas. But still you can see that there are these spaces of existence where theater of this kind, contemporary Russian theater, that exist, and where artists are able to at least represent and emote in their own way, in their free way, although they may not write content which is very offensive or content which is inviting troubles, but it's also the assertion through the art that is important. So the exciting part about the contemporary art of Russian theater is that it explores a lot of experimental things, and it also collaborates with various kinds of artists. And storytelling is becoming more and more immersive experience, more and more inclusive experience, because audience is included in the whole method of performance. Traditional and cultural aspects of Russian theatre are struggling today a lot, and the long history that started with the medieval age also is important even today. It includes elements of folklore, mythology, and religious rituals, reflecting the cultural tradition of Russian theatre. And it has a history of innovation and experimentation, particularly evident in the works of influential figures such as Stanislavski and Sevol Meyerhold. So, although Russian theatre is changing, it holds on to its old traditions by performing classical plays alongside the new ones. You can see these pictures that tell you the story of or the kind that I am narrating, that the dresses, the visuals, the whole visual feel of this theatre is such that it represents that the assertion, and it represents the constant action on part of the people who theater people who are in Russia, seeking to nurture and seeking to cherish the past of their theater, the history of their theater, or history of performance culture. So there has been revival in this in recent years because of the possibility to directly connect with audience through social media and put up the performances and actions of stage through video recording in social media platforms, and seeking responses of people, feedbacks from people world over. In theater festivals are also more across the world. Traveling has become easier, and people are able to share their work more. So that kind of connection is also an important thing, or interlinking is also there. So these things are enriching the contemporary theater in Russia, and especially not much of history that has been documented about the medieval theater practice or performance culture, and the culture that existed prior to that. Those are now trying to be reconstructed, revisited, in order to solidify their presence in the narrative of the entire Russian identity. So it's a Russian theater movement, new drama, which is this movement has started in the early 21st century, and it marked a significant departure from traditional Russian theatrical style, reflecting contemporary and political issues. Hypernaturalism is a key feature of. Please cut this out. Hyperrealism is a key feature of new drama, and it is characterized by its hyperrealistic portrayal of everyday life. Now, what is hypernaturalism or hyperreal drama or portrayal? So, this kind of naturalism is that in which the real life incidents are portrayed in their real time, which means that if some kind of event or some episode in reality has taken place over 4 minutes or 4 hours, then the play will also showcase it in 4 hours. That is the hyper realistic portrayal of everyday life. So in new age, in 21st century, Russian theater is producing these kinds of examples where hyper reality, hyper real drama is being produced, and the Russian theatrical style is looking to imbibe more and more socio-political issues, and therefore we call it new drama. Now, there are some challenges faced by Russian theatre because during Soviet era, theatre had to follow strict rules led by leaders like Joseph Stalin. Following the collapse of Soviet Union, Russian theatre grappled with economic hardships and instability during the transition to a market economy. In recent years, it has faced emerging challenges related to funding constraints, audience decline, and competition from other form of entertainment. These are the kinds of worries that are haunting the theatre practice in the entire world. But there are some places where the situation is not that disturbing, and there are some countries situation is slightly disturbing, and it's very, very bad in some places. This is a challenge for Russian theatre, that after Soviet Union, the idea of Russian theatre has not been able to assert itself. The whole message of Russian theatre, the identity of Russian theatre is not visible. So it is still looking for its ground, it is also searching for its ground, and in that process it is disturbed and distracted and hegemonized by the intervention of other platforms, other medium of entertainments like social media and OTT platforms. So the situation hopefully gets better because Russian art and culture, which has been a very important paradigm of the non-European world to look up to, is hoped to be powerful enough to sustain itself and provide us and a continued kind of inspiration of fresh ideas and fresh cultural interventions. So with this, I close my lecture, my discussion here. These notable figures of productions of Russian theatre are Anton Chekhov, who wrote famous plays like The Seagull, Uncle Vanya, and The Cherry Orchard, timeless classics, and they are continued to be performed worldwide. Then Konstantin Stanislavski, who was a famous actor and director, and I will discuss his work in my separate discussion. Then Vsevolod Mierhold, a Russian theatre director and producer known for his experimental approaches to staging and movement. His productions, such as Bedbug and the Inspector General, challenged the traditional and theatrical conventions. In addition to this, Bolshoi Theatre, built in 1776, is one of Russia's most iconic institutions. It is known for its opera and ballet productions. So this is a summation of the information that I have shared with you. I advise you to continue reading on about Anton Chekhov and his plays, and try to read more about Konstantin Stanislavski and Meyerhold. These are very important figures of Russian theatre, Russian cultural practice of modern times. But sadly, we do not get to hear names as influential and as important as these after them. And that for that I have already shared with you the reasons, and hopefully we will have more to discuss about Russian theatre and discussion of Russian theatre in terms of its contribution for the entire world, as it has contributed a lot. There was a time when, during the time of Soviet Union period, Indian People's Theatre Association, IPTA, used to have a lot of collaborations with Soviet Union companies of theatre. And at the level of cultural engagement, India has had a beautiful history of getting associated with Russian artists. It is visible in theatre, it is visible in films. This is the reason that you find the films of Raj Kapoor, where Russian actors have worked a lot. Raj Kapoor's films were very popular in Russia. Circus has been a very important performance culture where India and Russia have had a lot of connections. Indians have always been fond of watching Russian circus artists. So this kind of mutual traffic has been there between India and Russia. In addition to this, the socialist and communist movements of India have been inspired by the works of writers like Anton Chekhov and even the novelists. So the play The Mother by Maxim Gorky, the novel, has inspired various productions in India. There is a film called Hazar Chaurasi Ki Maa, which is inspired from Maxim Gorky's novel The Mother, and it has also inspired plays. It has inspired films. And then, other than this, in all, the communist and the socialist movement of India have had close connections with the Soviet world. In fact, not just one kind of political parties, but many political parties across the length and breadth of India have had engagements with Russian artists during the Soviet Union era, and they have benefited a lot. Theatre has also benefited a lot. So this kind of enrichment is important for the world to carry the cultural legacy forward. We may have our own agreements and disagreements with certain ideologies, but more important is to sustain the cultural practice. Whatever ideology is there, let the cultural practice prevail, and we should open we should be open to having more and more such things in future. And with this, I close this discussion. I hope you have enjoyed this discussion about Russian theatre. These are the sources from where I have picked up information as well as pictures. And this is it. I will meet you in a different lecture. Thank you so much.